This is the Global Travel Channel podcast show, and I'm your host, Mark Philpott. Welcome back, everyone, and it's great to have you here. I'm excited to be doing another podcast show today, and especially today because we're launching our new series. Yes, our International Food Series gets underway, and once per month you're going to be able to listen to our guest chef who's coming in to talk to us about a recipe that you, the listener, has sent us. Yes, you're going to be able to send your recipes to us. The chef's going to make them up, and we're going to share some travel stories also from that particular country. So there you go. Audience participation. Start sending your recipes to us now through social media or any other means that you can get to us. Okay, let's get in the mood and ready for our first theme food for this series, and it's going to be all the way from Now, I scouted the world long and hard to find the right chef to be on the show today, and he's going to be our resident chef for the food series for season number 1. And it's a very warm welcome back to the Global Travel Channel podcast show to Mr. Dion Taylor. Dion, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me, Mark. I'm super excited.
Me too. We're on to a good thing here. We're starting something new and fresh, and I think we're two guys that like doing new and fresh stuff. So how are you going today?
I'm awesome. We've actually got a little bit of rain over us today here in sunny Bundaberg.
Yeah, thanks for sending it down my way. I'm sitting here looking at the hatch in my boat, and it's covered in water at the moment.
we need a bit of a wash down, so it's good.
This is the first episode of the Global Travel Channel podcast show food series, and once a month Dion is going to be joining me from beautiful Bundaberg, and we're going to be taking our listeners' recipes, and Dion's going to cook them up as a storm up there, not the kind of rainstorm we're having today though. But before we get into today's show, why don't you give the audience a snapshot, Dion, of your history when it comes to cooking, and tell us some of the places you have plied your skills around the world.
Fantastic. Well, I started my apprenticeship many moons ago as a very young, eager kitchen hand, and I virtually worked my way through my apprenticeship, qualified, and the first thing I did was book a ticket to go to England. I wanted to spend time working with what I considered high-end hotels, very trade qualified chefs, and get access to amazing commodities that I'd never seen before. So I spent 3-4 years in the UK, and for me it wasn't just about working in a country where I knew the language. It was about having access to all those chefs from all over the world and being able to get a really good knowledge of all those trade secrets, but just how to become the better chef that I always wanted to be. From the UK, I did a little bit of time in the States. I probably spent a lot of my spare time, to be honest, traveling around Germany, Belgium, France, Scotland, Wales. And then I got a bit of a taste for Asia, not so much working, but the holiday experience. The beauty of food is you don't need to be trade qualified chef. It's about that full immersion into the culture, the food, and just exploring those local marketplaces. What I then did was brought all of that knowledge and all of that experience back into Australia. And here we are today. I've opened up my own restaurant, function center, and meal preparation facility, and we're all about sharing and showcasing just local produce, local flavors, and I enjoy nothing more than meeting our local growers. So that's, I guess, me in a nutshell. I'm all about the people behind the product, and I'm excited about this show, Mark, and being able to share all of my knowledge with all of our listeners.
Yeah, fantastic. I guess going across all those countries that you visited and having your chef's hat on, so to speak, excuse the pun, It must have given you a real insight to different flavors and tastes and different foods across the world, basically, as you traveled around.
Very much so. The flavors as you travel around the world, they're also very different. The best part of it all, though, I find, is the fact that you can actually taste the culture. Every country is so proud of their food. Each meal has a level of importance, and it's not every meal is served at every dinner table. So there's a lot of appreciation for the sensitivities around culture, and it's just being able to enjoy all those little differences, little flavors, and the quirks of the countries.
What was your favorite cuisine when you were traveling around?
Ooh, my favorite, I'm a little impartial to Asian culture. For me, Thai green curries. I love a lot of fresh herbs, so I like that punch and that crunch. I've just been able to taste all of the key but simple ingredients.
Yeah, brilliant. Now, on each episode that we do together, we're going to feature a recipe from one country, and we're going to also chat about travel in that country a little bit. Today's dish is from Mexico, and a special shout out to a big friend of this show, Luisa Gonzalez, who is from Cancun in beautiful Mexico. She provided the recipe for today's show and for Dion to cook up a storm. So Luisa, thank you so much for your recipe. Dion, have you been to Mexico?
I have. I've got a few quirky memories of Mexico, and they were from a long time ago, but they still hold a very special place in my heart.
It's a fantastic country, and for people listening today, if you wanted to have some travel tips on Mexico, if you're searching for some of the best beaches in the world, you can go to places like Cancun or Tulum. Los Cabos and Puerto Vallarta are some of the other places that you should visit while you're in Mexico. And if you're looking for that city life, then Mexico City, Merida and San Miguel de Andes are fantastic cities to visit in Mexico. And it is a country of contrast, so you can find a lot of different things. And today's dish that Dion is going to cook up is called what, Dion?
It's our shrimp AguaChile.
Wow, AguaChile, eh? Well, fantastic. So, Luisa, thank you again for sending in the recipe for the show today. And Dion, let's get started. So tell us about, where do we start with creating this dish?
The beauty of this dish, I believe that most people around the world can replicate this dish. So effectively, the key ingredient is a quality shrimp or prawn, followed by a number of very staple ingredients: lemons, cucumber, some jalapeno chilies, some coriander, some red onion, and avocado. These are the sensual basics. I really love these key ingredients because we use them in more recipes than we probably considered, but bringing these flavors together for this dish, they were nothing short of inspirational. You can taste them all, you can smell them all, and you actually enjoy working with each of these commodities one at a time and blending them together.
Yeah, tremendous. Now, for people listening in today, we are, of course, going to put the recipe in the show notes for you today, along with some photographs of what the meal or the dish actually looks like when it's finished. Now, talking about the produce, Dion, and I know you're a guy that supports local very much, and tell us about how you go about sourcing your produce for this particular dish.
I'm all about meeting the people. So for me, it's not just going into a supermarket and finding these commodities. I guess I put the challenge out to people that I know and I work with. Go to the farm gates. See if you can create some of these dishes with direct purchase from the farm gate sale. So living on the coast here in Bundaberg, we've got access to amazing seafood. However, on the inside, our inland area, we've also got some beautiful tree crops. Our avocados come from, for example. Our citrus comes from, and then we've got a lot of small crop growers as well. So one of Australia's biggest chili growers is here in Bundaberg. So I was stoked when I saw Louisa's menu come through with the shrimp AguaChile Star hero of the dish, jalapenos. Happy days.
Okay, cool. Now, I've just recently started a new health kick in my life, and I'm very interested to find out whether these dishes we're going to be doing with you throughout the series are going to be good for my new diet program. So, is this a healthy dish that I'm going to get a lot of nutrition out of?
Today's dish is actually loaded with protein, good essential fats, and it's actually a clean dish because it has a very high lemon base. So with that lemon itself, that is actually going to be our cooking ingredient. The lemon is going to be the hero, and that's actually going to be, it's a no cooking dish effectively. We have a one pot wonder, and we've got a one chopping board, and we are good to go.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, I've realized through my new health spurt that I'm not so good in the kitchen. So when you explain how to put this dish together today, you're going to have to do it in kind of layman's terms that I'm going to even understand, because I want to give it a go. And where do I start? What do I grab out of the cupboard first of all?
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so the first thing we've got to do is work with our prawns or our shrimp, depending on where you're listening from. So I went and bought 500 grams of fresh prawns. The prawns themselves, depending on country, you'll see there'll be Endeavour, King, Red Spot. We've personally used Endeavour prawns. Mm-hmm. I've taken them out of the bag, put them into a bowl, and effectively we're going to start peeling them. Easiest thing I find to do is take the prawn, remove the head as stage one, using your, say, right hand with holding the prawn tail, remove the outer shell of the prawn. As you get down to the very end, you can virtually pop the tail off, and then all you have then is your actual prawn. But the trick to this dish is you've got to remove, more commonly known as in the kitchen, the poo tube, which is that, I guess, digestion tract of the prawn, which runs along the backbone. And again, depending on where your prawns are coming from, you'll see that as either a darker color, which is identifying pretty much what the prawn's been eating. In Bundaberg, a lot of our prawns will either have a sandy, gritty texture to that area, or we end up with a very high seaweed color, so that greeny sort of color. So we kind of know where our prawns are coming from based on that waste tract of the prawn, but it's best to get it out. So you can either do one of two things. If you can see the top end of that poo tube there, you can actually pull it and all of that waste will come out. Or if you need to, just get a small paring knife and make a small incision into the prawn, and you can actually cut that piece out. It's not a hard process, but please be mindful if you are holding those prawns and you've got a sharp knife, don't put too much pressure on that incision or you'll end up cutting the prawn in half.
I'm interested to know, you mentioned about the different types of prawns. Are Endeavour prawns available worldwide?
Oh, I'm not sure actually. I personally use them because they're a good size and they're quite sweet. So I guess if you're going into your local fishmonger, ask them for a large prawn that is generally sweet, because the cooking side of this, as I mentioned before, you're relying on the lemon juice to physically cook these prawns or cure these prawns. So a nice meaty texture with that softness, but also that sweetness overtone really blends well with that lemon juice.
Okay. Now you said 500 grams. How many will this particular dish feed?
We were a bit cheeky. We made a kilo, but that fed 4 of us. So 500 grams is a very generous meal for 2 people.
Okay, cool. Okay, so we've prepared the prawns. Is there anything else we need to do with the prawns right now?
So those raw prawns, they're all now peeled. We've removed the digestive tract. They're sitting in a bowl. So personally, I put them into a glass bowl because this cooking stage with the lemon juice, I wanted to make sure that I could see the process, but also it works a little bit better. If you're putting lemon juice into like a plastic bowl, sometimes the lemon juice itself will actually permeate the flavors from the plastic. So if you use either a steel bowl or a glass bowl, you'll be guaranteed not to have any cross-contamination with your flavors.
Wow, there's a good tip, folks. So don't use... I've got to go out and get some glass bowls now. I don't know if I've got any glass bowls on the boat. Okay, I've taken
You could
that
maybe
down
use
as
a nice
tip.
ceramic bowl. That'll be fine.
Okay, cool. Okay, what's up next? What do we do next?
Okay, we've got to create 3/4 of a cup of lemon juice. Now, this is a bit of a trick. I personally used 4 lemons, and we had more than 3/4 of a cup. When I'm talking about the size of a lemon, if you think of a clench your fist, for example, you're looking for something about half the size of that. So what I would refer to as a good, generous, large lemon, and you'd be working on 4 of them. With that lemon juice, easiest way to do it, I just cut them in half and physically gave them a good squeeze. But if you do have a juicer or anything along those lines, it could be one of those plastic juicers, or we've actually got a timber one that you put into the eye of the lemon, squeeze it around, and you'll be guaranteed all that juice.
Brilliant. Do you put anything in with the lemon juice at this stage?
So with our lemon juice itself, we're going to be making 3/4 of a cup of lemon juice. Depending on the size of your lemons, will depend on how many you need to buy. But if you work on 4 large lemons, that'll give you roughly that 3/4 of a cup. Once you've got your lemon juice, set that aside, because a key part of this is we're going to need to be putting that with some of our other flavors into a little food processor. So it doesn't need to be a high-end one. If you've got a NutriBullet or a benchtop food processor, that would work in fine. If you don't have one, it would still be possible, but you're not going to get your key flavors as fine as you would do if you had to chop them yourself.
So we've got the prawns sitting in a bowl. We've got the lemon juice that's aside now, and they've been squeezed and ready to go. What's the next step?
Yep. Okay, so now our hero of our dish, as I suggested before, was those jalapeno peppers. For me personally, the beauty thing of a jalapeno is they've got enough heat in them, but not too much where you're going to feel like it's going to rip the roof off your mouth. Jalapenos are that delicate mid-range chili. It's enough that you know it's in there. But I guess one of the tips that Luisa shared with me is if you work on a minimum of 2 jalapenos, but we put 4 jalapenos in ours, and I like that level of heat. The jalapenos themselves, they've got that, what would they be? Probably 5-6 centimeters in length, that beautiful green, shiny flesh, and they're almost full. Like you can almost tell they're tempting you with heat. They want to burn you, but they want you to come back. These ones here, all I simply did, you'll see at the top, most fresh chilies will have the little stalk on top, is I cut the chili in half lengthwise, remove the seeds, or if you are a heat buster, leave those seeds there because we're going to blend them up. The only thing you do have to do with this stage though is remove the jalapeno stalk, because that's not going to get any softer. Because there's no cooking, it's just a marinade. So in our food processor, we've now got our 3/4 of a cup of lemon juice, our 4 jalapeno peppers with the seeds removed, the stalk removed, and we're going to add the most controversial herb, I think, anywhere in the world, coriander.
Why is it so controversial?
I don't know whether it's because it starts with C. I don't know what it is. Cilantro, coriander, it's that strong, pungent, very, very powerful. It sits on the top of your tongue. I think a lot of people are afraid of it because they're not used to it, particularly not in Western culture. It's very much an Asian hero. It's obviously a Mexican, South American favorite there as well. So depending on people's familiarities with it, this is a great way of becoming a friend of coriander.
Okay, interesting. Now, I've got to ask you at this stage, are you somebody that goes through and has a dish for the first time and then goes, okay, I might have overdone it then on the jalapenos, and next time I cook it, I'm going to tone it down a bit? Or how do you approach things like this? Like the regular mum and dad and family out there listening to the show today and preparing this, is it better for them to underdo the chili thing than overdo it in the beginning, or what?
To me, Mark, it's like diving. Now, I'm not a duck to water. If I'm going to dive off the end of your boat into the ocean, I'm going to go in anyway, hollis bollis, with my shoes on. I mean, it's all or nothing. So for us, we went straight to 4 chilies.
Okay, fair enough. And
but for those, if you're feeding like children, for example, our kids aren't at this level of adventure yet with their culinary appreciation.
Yep.
So I guess ask the adult guests and say, are we going to be in? Are we good for heat, or are we going to be sitting on the edge drinking margaritas?
Very, very good. So, okay, I get it. You want to go in boots and all and blow everybody's mouth off, and then come back the second time around and maybe tone it down a bit, huh?
I think the bit that I find with any recipe, we can always soften the blow. Like this dish here, for example, once you've actually seen the picture and you've created the dish, I feel personally this one here, you could possibly soften it with some natural yogurt, some sour cream, something that's going to be still aligned with the culture of the meal, but still give you that little bit of flexibility that if it's too hot, you can soften it.
How much coriander do we use?
We're going in for a half a cup. For us personally, if you go to a local supermarket or something like that, you would use that whole bunch. So not a big generous bunch like you'd get from a farmer's market, but a half a cup of coriander. By the time you've chopped that, it would probably realistically be about half to a quarter bunch.
Okay. And then that gets put into the blender with everything else?
Yeah, so in the blender now, we've got our lemon juice, we've got our 4 jalapeno peppers, we've got our half a cup of coriander, and we are going to secure this up and hit the magic button. All we're looking for here is a nice soft chopped coriander. You can visually see that your jalapenos are all chopped up and mulched as well. And then all it's going to be doing is making like a dressing or a vinaigrette sort of concept, just with no oil. So we've got our blended flavors, our blended citric acid, and then what we're going to do, this is our marinade, but it's also going to be what we use to cook those prawns. So once you've had your liquid on the blender, I'd probably suggest it'll be about a minute and a half. Unscrew the lid, pour that, before you pour the magic, put your nose over it. Actually really get excited about that coriander. The chili, you can only just smell it, but as you get those soft overtones of that lemon citrus, it gets your taste buds started. It's almost like going, oh, we've just crossed the border, we're traveling into Mexico, I can get a bit of a feel for what it looks like, but I haven't tasted it yet.
Brilliant description. I like it. We've just crossed the border. Okay. We're all looking forward to crossing borders again right now. So,
oh, totally. I think this is going to be a really exciting way of building anticipation to travel.
Yeah, absolutely indeed. It's got my taste buds going, that's for sure. So to me it smells, I'm trying to envisage the smell. It's a really fresh smell, is it? A very, very clean, fresh smell.
This is the beautiful thing of this dish. You've nailed it, Mark. It's clean, it's fresh, and it's simple. This dish itself, the preparation time is probably 15-20 minutes. It probably takes you longer to wait for the dressing that we've just made to cook the prawns than what it does to make the whole dish.
Yeah, right. Okay, so we spent...
this is a beautiful dish that you could potentially make ahead of time as well. So let's say you're coming home from work for lunch. You could potentially get this dish made, sitting in the fridge, and when you come home from work, it's ready to go.
Yeah, beautiful. So you've
It's
done
a nice, easy dish.
You've done a minute and a half of blending, you said, roughly, to get it to the context that we want. What do we do next?
Okay, so with that liquid, we're going to pour that over our prawns. The tip that I guess I'd probably add to this dish, make sure you mix the prawns thoroughly through that liquid. Because as we said before, this liquid is cooking the prawn. So right now, when you look at your prawns, they've got that clear blue sort of color to the flesh. You'll see that as you add that lemon juice liquid to it, the prawns will start to turn that pink color to that cooked color, like when you're looking at a peeled cooked prawn. So what we're looking for now is that time for the lemon juice to do its magic, because it's going to be doing the cooking. While we've got our lemon juice on the prawns, my only other suggestion would be a couple of really good cracks of salt and pepper. Don't just use table salt. If you have actual grinders, it's best to use like a sea flake that you can grind, or rock salt to grind, and some of your favorite peppers. These are like the dried black ones or your red and green. Put them into your grinder, and a good couple of grinds of salt, a good couple of grinds of pepper, and another good mix through with that liquid over the prawns. Set them aside back in the fridge, and I'd probably leave them in there initially 10-15 minutes, pull them out and check them, and just see how that coloring is going. It's the beauty of this dish, depending on how comfortable you are with it. If the prawns are a little bit undercooked, it's not going to hurt you, but it's just about, I guess, being comfortable with your own preference of the eating of the dish.
Okay, cool. So we've got it in the fridge. What do we do next?
The good thing is we don't need to just pack up and go home. We can actually start working on the rest of our salad. A real key ingredient of this is that avocado. So for this dish, the recipe suggested 1 avocado. I personally would probably go 2. I love avocados. I love that creaminess. I love the texture. I love the fact in this dish particularly, it actually also adds to a little bit of that sauce and a bit of creaminess to the overall dish as well. It's a little bit of like, I sort of mentioned before about sour cream or natural yogurt. Avocado was a great way of managing heat. So if you're feeling like you're a bit unsure, maybe buy 2 avocados, start with 1, and if you need a second one, you can always add it down the track. So what we're going to do here is we're going to have another bowl potentially, or even just your chopping board. We are going to have 1/4 of a red onion, 1 avocado, and 1 cucumber which you peel. And effectively what we're doing here is we're going to prepare the salad part of this dish. So for me personally, peel the cucumber, cut it in half lengthways, so down the long way of it. And then once you've got your 2 halves on the bench, just gently slice them all the way through until you get to the end, the top and tail of each of them. So you've got 2 halves of cucumber nicely sliced. Just set that aside. The 1/4 of your red onion, I personally just peel a whole onion, top and tail it, peel it all, and then take what you need. So finely slice this as much as possible, primarily because this is a raw salad onion you're going to be eating. So unless you're really up for heavy onion breath or whatever the case is, it's okay. But for me, I find the finer you can slice it, the better. So we've now got our sliced cucumber, our sliced red onion, and we've got our second hero of the dish, this avocado. This avocado needs to be ripe. Don't use anything hard or too firm, because you want that creaminess of the avocado. You really want to get that texture out of it. And you'll see why once you've made this dish, it does form part of the texture. So for me, again, personally, there's a few different ways you can take the flesh out of an avocado. I personally just take the little stalk top off, where you'll see where it would have been hanging from the tree, flip out the stalk, get your paring knife, cut your avocado as like the diameter of the avocado. You've then got 2 halves. So a nice way when you're looking at it is you've got 1/2 with a seed, 1/2 without. Remove the seed obviously, because that's not going to be eating that bit. and then it's up to you how you want to get the skin off. Now, I find with avocados, it depends on what variety that you're working with. Some avocado skins, they seem to stick like I don't know what. If they've got very thin skin, I find the skin sticks to the flesh of the avocado a lot more than the thicker skin avocados. So first way, if you want to try this, you could use a dessert spoon and put the spoon between the skin and the flesh and scoop the avocado out. Or if you find the skin is not lifting, put the avocado with the flesh side down on your chopping board so the skin is to the top. Use your paring knife again, cut the avocado into what would be a quarter, and then you'll find you can peel that flesh off the skin a lot easier. And then you'll have your avocado flesh, and what we're going to try and do is pretty much just chop it up however you visually would like to see it when it's mixed in with the prawn salad. And then you set that aside. So we'll have our avocado prepped, our red onion prepped, and our cucumber prepped. And they can just sit on the side there until our prawns are about half cooked. And then we'll add them to the rest of the prawn dish.
Do you get your avocados locally up there?
Mark, we are so spoiled here. Avocados, macadamias, pretty much we have all of the amazing tree crops here in Bundaberg. So we were very fortunate that we went to our local convenience store where I know they get their avocados from about 15 k's away. So one of the challenges that we do with our dishes and a lot of the food that we cook is how local can we make it? If we know there's an opportunity of eating as much as we can within about a 50-kilometre radius of our own house, we feel pretty special about that. But it's not just about eating local, eating what's in season, but for us, a key part of our life and our lifestyle is supporting our local economy.
Isn't that a great thing though? Like you've just explained, here is a dish from Mexico on the other side of the world, and yet you can go out your back door and source all these things, all these ingredients locally that make up this amazing dish.
You know, the only one thing, Mark, I couldn't get locally was red onion, but I can still get that from they grow red onions and brown onions in Gatton, so I can get them from Queensland. And I think that was probably the next thing, is whatever you can't get locally, look maybe to the next area or next region and try and eat as local as you can. Believe it or not, it's actually better for you because the energetics of food is what our body is used to. When we start eating things from out of our own country, out of season, they're not at peak performance as a vegetable or a fruit or whatever the case is. So we've got to eat local where we can, but also our body can digest it a bit easier because we're used to those ingredients and being around.
That's a really good thing to explain, I think, in terms of, because I think a lot of people, including myself, are not conscious enough about how far our food has travelled to get to our plate, right?
Often, and we can probably joke about it now, our food is better travelled than you and I that are eating it.
Yeah, I'm sure. And it sounds like we need a red onion grower up around the Bundaberg area.
Yeah, that's right. And look, I guess I thought the red onion was amazing for colour. If you don't have red onions available, I would have thought some spring onions would go down a treat as well.
Yeah, right. Okay, good. So you've got the avocado in two halves. You've taken the seed out. You've used the skin dessert spoon to take off the skin, hopefully, if it's easy to do. And you've chopped it up and put it all aside. So got that sitting aside. Now what's next?
Yep. Okay, now it's time to check on our prawns. This is the bit that I think the people are going to need a little bit of help, because if you haven't ever cooked seafood with a lemon juice or any level of acid, it feels a bit weird because people go, is it cooked? Is it not cooked? Where am I at? So the biggest trick here, if you're unsure, is physically take one of those prawns out of the marinade. You're feeling for the texture. Prawns, if you check them when they're green or raw, they're quite loose. The flesh itself is quite soft. When they start to cook, they firm up. It's a little bit like we all want to be, nice and tight and firm, but not overdone. So if you just grab your prawn using your fingers, just gently press it, and you'll feel your way through the whole prawn. But another tip could be, if you're genuinely unsure, just cut the prawn in half. Have a look inside, and if it's still looking clear, if the flesh looks clear, it still needs more time in the lemon juice.
Right. Okay, got it.
What I find now, when we recreated this dish, it was about 20 minutes in total, 25 minutes, and those prawns will cook through. I guess it's going to depend on how big your prawns are. If they're really thick, they'll take longer. If they're smaller, more like finer shrimp, they might take about that 15 minutes.
Got it. Okay.
Once we've got our, what we believe are cooked prawns, we're going to add our salad mix into our prawns. So we've got all of that marinade, all of those prawns. We're going to add our avocado, our red onion, and our cucumber. And we're going to mix this dish nicely so that you get that dressing over all of that salad. What you'll be looking at now is a beautiful color. You've got those lovely greens from your coriander, that creaminess and the green from the avocado, and the cucumber, even though you've peeled it, it's got another shade of green, and then you get that pop of that red onion. And genuinely, folks, when you're actually looking at this dish and you're smelling this dish, it's going to be a challenge to not try and get one of those prawns in your mouth before you serve it. It's a challenge. I hand on heart suggest that you probably can't get your way through this dish without testing it.
So I've got a question, again, as a layman in this process. When you're mixing this together, are you using your hands or are you using utensils?
Oh, I guess that depends on how rustic you want to be in the kitchen. We personally just use a serving spoon, gave it a quick mix.
Yep.
Or if you don't have all of this infrastructure at home, practice just flipping the bowl. Get everything to one end of the bowl and flip it towards yourself.
Yep.
It might be the fastest way of learning if you can or can't flip the bowl. You might end up wearing it rather than tasting it.
Maybe start off with a little bit first.
A little bit of a mix is not a problem. You won't be cheating this dish,
Yeah.
I promise.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So
now we've got our prawn dish, Mark. One of the, I guess, suggestions that Luisa gave with us is tortilla chips or tostadas to serve. Now, for us at home, we generally have tortilla chips as a bit of a staple in our pantry. So we went with just a standard natural corn chip. I wouldn't recommend doing any of the flavored ones. Don't have cheese tortillas sneak in or barbecue tortillas sneak in. Let's just go with a plain good quality tortilla chip, or the same thing with the tostada. You don't want any of those ingredients taking away from that beautiful citrus herb and creaminess from the avocado and the prawns. Once you get this dish laid out, it's visually appealing. To me, in our house, we're very much buffet eaters. We like to put on a lot of different flavors, a lot of different ingredients, put them down the middle of our table, share them with our friends, share them with our family. It's a great way of creating conversations. It's a great way of tasting things and asking questions rather than just portioning it up and going, here you go, give it a taste. I like the idea, a big bowl of tortilla chips or a big plate of tostadas, and have one big generous bowl of this shrimp AguaChile on the side, and let people make up their own plates. Get interactive, have some fun, and I guess for me, this dish is really, it's clean and simple, but it's creative. And that was the key with this dish, is I could see, as you wanted to be adventurer with it, you could add more ingredients to it. You could maybe do some cherry tomatoes. As we said before, you could add some shallots. You could maybe try around with a different version of a chile and just have some fun and enjoy, because these are clean, simple flavors.
So what are we drinking with this? What's the best drink to have with a dish like this?
Oh, could we be as jestful as, say, a Corona? I'm not sure. We personally didn't have anything with it. I would have thought a nice, if you want to be a little bit of a rebel and sort of cross-culturalize, maybe a nice glass of Savvy Bee or something like that. But I think to really do it justice, you've got to have a cold Corona.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. There is a nice Sierra Blanca Sauvignon Blanc from Mexico, even if you want to go down the Mexican wine path, because not many people know about Mexican wine, so try that one with it as well. Now, a dish like this, most foods that you prepare, Dion, are best prepared and eaten immediately or pretty soon after. A dish like this, can it last in the fridge at all for any period of time?
Yeah, I guess the part of this dish you need to be mindful of is that lemon juice is going to keep cooking. So I would have thought personally, if you carried it much longer than about a day, those prawns will get quite texturous. They'll get a little bit chewy. So I would recommend with this one, if you want to be a little bit fun and a little bit cheeky, maybe get your guests involved in preparing this dish. Do it all, do it together, and enjoy it on that night.
Yeah, fantastic suggestion. And to give us an idea as far as taste buds go, when you hoe into it for the first couple of mouthfuls, what are we experiencing there?
Oh, you get that lovely tingle from the lemon juice. At the back of your mouth, you get that little hit of chili, but then you also get the softness from the avocado, a little bit of a spike there with the red onion. But geez, those prawns, for me, the prawns were the hero. They were big, they were juicy. Oh yeah, I was excited. Even the kids, even though they didn't actually sit there and eat it with us, myself and my wife Tennille, we sat down, we looked at each other and just ate the lot. There was no way any of this was going back in the fridge. It was amazing.
There we go, everyone listening. That's the Dion's experience in preparing AguaChile for you. And Luisa, it sounds like you've got a new Mexican fan in Australia by the sound of it with this particular recipe. Anything else that we can finally add for anybody preparing this dish, Dion?
I think the key with it is when you're going around and getting your ingredients, ask if you do have access to those growers, just ask them a little bit. Maybe buy, instead of one avocado, buy 4 avocados. And then ask that grower, what's your favorite recipe with avocados? Or what's your favorite recipe with shrimp if you have to buy a kilo? Don't just buy what you need, buy more, support your local grower, your local processor, whatever the case is, because you know you're going to eat it. Chances are, with this shrimp AguaChile, you're going to make it again for the following day.
Yeah, that sounds like a fantastic tip. Well, Luisa Gonzalez, thank you very much sending us our first recipe for the Global Travel Channel Food Series. And Dion, a wonderful explanation on how to prepare this particular dish. As I said before at the beginning of the show, we're going to put the recipe notes and photographs in the show notes for everybody to be able to trial this one at home. And there's no greater time than getting in the kitchen right now when we're all told to stay at home a little bit longer and prepare some of these international dishes that you can all try out, and maybe you'll become hooked on them and be eating them a long time into the future. Dion, thanks for sharing that with us today. Where are we going to be heading off next month? What country are we going to visit?
Oh, it's exciting. We are going to Belgium.
Belgium.
The land of chocolate, the land of fine food. So let's get excited. It's going to be fun.
Fantastic. Well, I'm sure we're not going to be making chocolate or waffles next time up. We're going to be diving into something a lot more Belgique. So if you're looking for a recipe from Belgium, tune in next time on the Global Travel Channel Food Series with Dion Taylor. We're going to be cooking up another storm. Dion, thank you for joining me today. And we made a great success in show number 1. So let's look forward to the next show that we do together.
My absolute pleasure.
So there we are, folks. There's the first episode in the Global Travel Channel podcast show Food Series featuring Dion Taylor for the first season. Dion's a chef up in Bundaberg in Australia, and check in the show notes, you'll be able to find out the restaurant that he runs there. Interesting dish indeed, AguaChile from Luisa Gonzalez in Cancun. Luisa, thank you very much for sending that in. Don't forget, you can send us your recipes from your country and we'll feature them on the Global Travel Channel podcast show. And we've got some exciting things coming up in the future for you all. So thank you very much for joining Dion and I today. Hope you enjoyed our first episode in the food series. And we'll catch you all again 1 month from now with the next episode in the Global Travel Channel podcast show, Food Series. I look forward to bringing you all the next podcast for the Global Travel Channel. My name's Mark Philpott. Until we meet again, stay well and stay safe.